Hello and welcome to Tricks of the Astray channel. Today is the 3rd of April 2017, and today's video we have Andy Biersack. He's a member, well, we'll call him a he for now, but by the time we get done with the video you get to find out that it's actually a she. So he's a member of a rock band called, I think, the Black Veil Brides. Let me make sure that I get that information correctly. Yes, Black Veil Brides, that's the name of the band that Andy Biersack is. And if you're a fan of the great rock and roll bands way back in the day, like all the Metallica bands and so on and so forth, then you would be a fan of Andy Biersack. Or if you're young, as the case may be, as we all are, then you would be a fan of Andy Biersack. You probably have heard about him. So before we get into the video, I'm going to talk about a few things because I happen to be in the beautiful city of London today, and a lot of things has been going on in London, in England in particular. So I'm going to talk about that on the show today. So we'll just have a little bit feel for it. But before I get into that, if it's your first time on our channel, and I would like to welcome you, and also like to let you know that even though we feature a lot of like transgender and transsexuals on our channel, the whole idea isn't really about transgenders and transsexuals. It's more like using that as a foothold for you to actually see that these things are real and they are happening. Our goal is to get you information, correct, precise information, all right? We're not here to disinform you in any shape or form. If we happen to give out misinformation, I want you to pardon us because, as you should know, you should also be able to study and research what we say, all right? Not just take it in. Go back and do your own research because that's how you're going to get knowledge and be and be a person who understands things, okay? So you have to do your own research, not just go off what we say. So, and before we get into the video, as I always say on all our videos, we are not against transgenders or transsexuals, all right? If you reach the age, adulthood, that age in which the law accepts that you're an adult and you can make the decision on your own and say, okay, I think I should live a fantasy or the hoax of being in another sex or gender that's not the sex or gender that I was born with. I mean, that's totally up to you. You do you. We are not here to judge you. We can't judge you because God has given us the right? Has given us the will, power to live our lives any type of way we want it to be, and he will remain the judge. God judges, not us. We're just presenting information. We're trying to make people understand the world because there's a lot of lies and a lot of deception out there. People are making decisions when they don't have the full information. The decisions you make are biased. So, for example, what am I trying to say? The world we live in does not present the full facts to you for you to make a decision, right? Every decision you make is based on biased information that's always going to lead you to make the wrong decision and go the wrong way. That's just the way the world works. And so our channel right here is dedicated to giving you information, some bit of truth, all right? And not just a bit of truth. We are dedicated to giving you the full truth to the fullest degree that we have, all right? So that's what we're dedicated to. So if it's your first time on our channel, all right, I do recommend that you watch the primer video. If you already watched the primer video, then you're good to go. But if you haven't watched the primer video, I mean, if you're a fan and you've subscribed and you haven't watched the primer video, I please beg you, please do watch the primer video. It's very, very important that you do. right? Because when you do, it will give you a basis and it will give you full information of what we're trying to do here, so you can perfectly understand what we say when we say it and how we say it, all right? And also, like I usually say, and I'll always present this fact in all the videos, that the people, all right, who are behind taking children, all right, who have put the system in place such that these children can be taken, can be bred, all right, can be taken care of, the media to cover the tracks of what they're doing and what these children are intended to be for the purpose that they're created for, is the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church hierarchy. I'm not talking about like lay Catholics here, or like regular Catholics who go to Mass every day and take all the sacraments and the communion and all that fine stuff. I'm talking about the hierarchy. When I talk about the hierarchy here, I'm talking about the people who run the Vatican, who run the Roman Catholic Church system. They are the ones who run this world. They are the inventors of the New World Order. They are the ones who own everything, down to the underwear that you wear, to the lotion you rub on your skin, to the toothpaste you have. The Vatican has a hand in it. They've always had their hands in everything, right? What they're trying to do right now, which is almost like maybe 80% complete at this moment, is what they call the New World Order. In simple terminology, the New World Order just means that the Pope wants to own the world, everything in it, with you also, and he wants you to be a slave to him. That's just what it means in very simple terminology. All right. So, like I've always said, in every video, right, that I make, that the case of being the case we're trying to show is that children, young children, who are being bred and being forced into a life of slavery by being castrated or mutilated, fed hormones, and forced to live in a sex and gender that's not their own. We were all children. I want you to think about this for a second. I don't have a problem with grown men doing things that they think is what they enjoy. I have no problems with that. But when you're taking children, we're all children. So imagine that. So this is what gives me the greatest concern, to expose this to people, to bring to the public knowledge of what's really going on around them. So you can understand your world and know who your enemy and who your problem is. All right? That's what we're trying to expose on this channel. So with that said, I want to get into the video properly, and I will always recommend, if it's your first time on our channel and you haven't watched the primer video, that you do so, that you should also watch the Marilyn Monroe video at your own time, right? And you can also watch the Zayn Malik video at your own time, and you can go through the videos on our channel at your own pace, right? We have a lot of videos. They all have information that is necessary and pertinent, which you should know about. So what I want to talk about, because I'm in the fine city of London, England, I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of fear. Because if you've been listening to the news lately, you will hear that there has been some bombs or some terrorists, trying to blow up stuff. I want you to let you know that the number one propaganda tool, the perfect weapon of choice, all right, that will make people do what the Vatican, the New World Order, wants you to do, is fear. It's fear. Fear is the number one tool that they use, because once you're afraid, you will do anything and everything they tell you to do. So let me give you a typical example of what I'm talking about. If you're afraid, if your government right now told you, you heard on the news, that there is a thief and a murderer, all right, in your neighborhood, you will be reacting to that fact. So for example, you're going to be locking your houses, you're probably going to be buying torches, you're going to be back home in time, so that you don't want to get caught out late at night. so that you won't meet a thief on a robber. So fear is a control mechanism. It's what the Vatican has perfected. So they put fear in you in so many different forms. Fear of your neighbor, fear of food, fear of nuclear weapons, which I'll talk about in a minute. Fear of anything, of viruses or anything. All this is used to control you. So that's why I always tell people, you got to study the Bible, the King James Bible. If you can get the 1611 King James version of the Bible, which has the complete like 85 books, it will do you a lot of good, because the Bible is not just a religious book. It's a book full of wisdom. It will teach you logical, sound, correct reasoning in which you can be able to process things. It's the Bible that tore down the Roman Catholic Empire during the Reformation under Martin Luther. It is what is still a problem today until today. The Bible, on people, studying the Bible to really actually know the wisdom that's in it. That's why they counteract the Bible on every single thing. There is not one thing that the Vatican doesn't counteract the Bible on. They themselves don't worship the God of the Bible. It's a different kind of God. Because if you go through a Roman Catholic Mass, everything that they do from start to finish is not in the Bible. All right? It's got nothing to do with it. They might preach all those fine things which make you feel good, just like you're watching a movie or listening to music, but it's got no truth in it. It's just the feel good kind of scriptures that you can find, or anybody, even a magician or somebody who doesn't even know God, can talk about. All right? The Vatican has got no interest. They counteract the Bible on every single thing. We have videos that will show you that, on how they invented the evolution, how they invented the Big Bang. I don't quite remember the name of the video that we have on this channel, but at one point in time, I'll try to make a list so that I can tell you about which video that I do talk about these things. I'm trying to go through that list and make that list as well. I can put it up on the on a video channel so that you can go through it and be updating it from time to time, right? So the Vatican has introduced all that just to counteract, right, the Bible on every single thing, because they don't want you to see the wisdom in it, because it's the Bible that brought down the Roman Catholic Empire. It's still the greatest problem that they have today. That's why they took out the praying and reading of the Bible in all public schools in the United States of America. People don't understand that. So with that, that's why, if for example, if you study your Bible, you will always remember when God, right, spoke to anybody in the Bible, whether it be Moses or when he spoke with anybody, the first thing he always said, or if any of the angels appeared to anybody, the first thing they always said was, do not fear. Why? Because fear is a control mechanism that the Vatican uses to control you, because once you're afraid, you're not gonna be thinking straight. You can't think straight when you're afraid. That's why God will always in the Bible, do not fear. The first thing he will always tell anybody when he met up was, be not afraid, I am with you. Because once you're afraid, you can't think straight. You can't do straight. Your senses become short-circuited. You're not thinking according to what, you're not thinking normally that a normal person would be thinking. You're just reacting to the fear. So that is why the Vatican puts so much fear in the public, to control you, the fear of anything. That's why if you turn on the news, for example, your local network news, all they broadcast and talk about, it's fear. Turn on your local network news, for example, you hear someone got killed, someone got shot, the bank's about to be closed, there is no money, there's poison in your food, and all that. And if just to see how these things work, upon all what they tell you on how wicked around, and the bad things that are happening, and the people who are doing it on purpose, nobody ever seems to get caught. Nobody's reprimanded. Nobody's prosecuted. Why is that? Right? So, to start off, let's talk about what I want to show you here about nuclear weapons, all right? First of all, before we get into some subject matter. Now, you can pause this video at any time, and I'm going to highlight this, right? You can pause the video and copy out that link, paste it in your browser, and read it, all right? I want you to do that. Now, the story I'm trying to make you understand is called, they say, radioactive boars are taking over this nuclear wasteland, and that's just the start of the problem. Now, if you know your history on nuclear weapons a little bit, you would understand that they say that nuclear weapons are radioactive materials. If you probably heard in the Second World War, when the United States dropped a nuclear weapon on Hiroshima and one other city in Japan, they said that that city would not, or the land would be unlivable for close to like 100 years, and that people would be born with all sorts of defects. All right. And but when we go to Japan right now, as of today, Japan is a thriving nation. There is no such defects at all. People are living good, right? Japan is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They produce almost all the electronics that we use, and cars as well, be it Toyota, be it Honda, be it Mitsubishi. I think so if I'm correct, and some various other, and TVs like Samsung that we watch, all right, or that we watch TV on, all seem to come from Japan. Oh, I think Samsung actually comes from Korea. I'm not too certain, but a lot of like electronics like Sony, for example, comes from Japan, if I'm right. Okay. So now, what I'm trying to show you here is one of the fear tactics of nuclear weapons. Because if you scroll down this page, like I'm scrolling down, it says here. Now, remember there was an earthquake that happened about 6 years ago in Japan that caused, they said they had to shut down a nuclear power plant because the nuclear power plant was melting. The rods were melting, right? Now, and you've also probably heard of another nuclear disaster called Chernobyl, all right, in Russia, in which they said that the nuclear power station melted down and the rods would sink into the earth, right, and probably come out some other place, and the place is gonna be like all it's not gonna be livable, and people, the plants won't grow, animals won't be able to feed for a couple of years, and then the Vatican, who owns all the media outlets of fear of propaganda, created a series of movies on Chernobyl just to keep that mindset of fear about nuclear weapons going on. But if we read this story right here on Fukushima. Now, it says in 2011, if you follow my mouse, it says a catastrophic chain of events led to nuclear meltdowns that caused over 300,000 people to evacuate the town surrounding Fukushima. Today, now, what is today? All right, it says today the area remains a radioactive ghost town, still too dangerous for human residents. All right, now the story tells you that I want you to follow this story pretty well so you can spot the lies when the Vatican is telling you a lie. It says today, let's see, what's today's date actually? Let's see the date that this article was written. It was written on April 14, 2017. April 14, 2016 at 2:18 p.m. That's almost close to a year now as of today, all right? Now, if we go down and read this story, so I want you to take note of this. It says, today the area remains a radioactive ghost town, still too dangerous for human residents. Then it says, but that isn't scaring away the boars. So it's too dangerous for human residents, but boas can live in it. Does that make any sense at all to you? That boas can live and human residents cannot live. Now, let me give you a typical example of how science really works, because science works on observation, all right? I happen to know a thing or two about computers, so I'm just like a science man as well, okay? Now, we always know, for example, let's say a drug wants to be tested, all right? In human trials, you want to taste something. You want to make sure that the taste is, maybe the drugs have progressed to a phase in which you have to do human testing. What do you test on first before you test the drugs on a human being? You test it on an animal. So if it works right for an animal, then that means it's going to work right for a human being, because that's how the test actually goes on the scientific observation. So if the radioactive material in Fukushima right here isn't scaring away the boars, automatically we should know that it shouldn't scare away human residents. Human residents should be able to live there. So I'm just showing you how the tricks of fear work with the nuclear thing. Now, I'm not trying to say here that there are no great weapons that can, cause a lot of destruction. But what I'm saying, that the nuclear thing, the nuclear scare tactic, has not been proven based on the information that we're getting here if we put sound logical thinking to it. All right? If you read down this page further, all right, you would see that they're trying to, they're trying to link all the nuclear disasters, because it has been proven, you can do this research on your own, that all the radioactive defects that they said that the land would be unusable after a number of years because the nuclear weapon was dropped on Hiroshima during the Second World War, and that the residents would have a problem, that the children will be born with defects, hasn't happened in Japan. I can try to, maybe I should try to get that story right out here for you, but I'll do that in a second. Before I go further, I just want to show you how these guys try to link the fear in here. For example, when they try to link this Fukushima with Chernobyl, so I'll read that a little bit more so you can see what I'm saying. It says, this isn't the first time a nuclear disaster has provided a stomping ground for local animals. You see how the Vatican plays with your senses, taking you for fools? Because, like I've always said, people don't think anymore. They don't put their brain to work. Because we always know, when we try to test if something is safe for human beings, we test it on animals first. If it's safe on those animals, then it's safe for a human being. This is a known scientific way of approach of solving problems related to human beings. All right? So I read further. It says the nuclear disaster zone of Chernobyl has seen a surge in its wildlife population over the past few decades, according to the National Geographic. So look now, I'm just gonna call it what it is. The nonsense that they say right after that statement. So you can see how the Vatican plays you for a fool. It says, look, just here, listen out. It says, it turns out that when you remove humans from the equation, animals like wolves and bears and wild boars actually thrive. In other words, when it comes to choosing between high radiation levels and human cohabitants, we actually appear to be the greater of two evils from a wild animal's perspective. I want to break out laughing here, but I'm not going to laugh just for the sake that it's a show and it's a video. So let me show you some other stuff on Japan about the effects on which they said that we would have like problems in Japan, defective effects which are not existing. So give me a second, all right? Let me pull that information out. So here is the info I was trying to get to you, all right? You can actually pause the video and copy the link out here. As you're following my mouse right there. Pause that video, copy the link, put it in your browser, and read it, okay? Now, I'm not saying on this channel that there are not weapons that can cause a lot of damage. But what I'm telling you, that the way they make nuclear weapons to be is not what it appears to be. All right? That's what I'm saying. Now, if you follow this page that I'm on, right? If we scroll down a little bit, I'm just gonna read something out on what this guy is saying. Um, Okay, just follow my mouse. It said, it is commonly believed that the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have a high cancer burden, a significantly shortened lifespan, and children with high rates of mutations and abnormalities. After a careful examination of the data, the author found this to be an incorrect assumption. Right? Now, if you read on, it says Jordan summarizes these findings, there's an enormous gap between that belief and what has actually been found by researchers. Now, let's think about it for a second from a very logical perspective. Japan is a thriving country. If the way they had said that these nuclear weapons would cause such deformities and defects in people, Japan shouldn't be doing as well as it's doing today, 70 years later, because we have to understand that in order for a country to be successful, it has to have a thriving, healthy population. And Japan is one of the most healthiest nations in the world. All right. So let's think about it from a very logical perspective from that perspective that of what I'm saying. So the whole thing, the whole nuclear weapons thing, is a fear tactic. Just like you hear about North Korea firing nuclear weapons in the news and all that, it's a fear tactic to make you afraid. Because once you're afraid, whatsoever your government or the Vatican tells your government to tell you to do, you will do because of fear. That's how fear is used as a control mechanism. All right. That's what I'm trying to show you. There's also another article here. You can actually copy this part out that you follow my mouse as I'm highlighting on the screen and put that in your browser. It should bring up the story, and you can pause this video so you should know that when you put that in your browser, that this story comes out correctly, and it's going to be from the dailymail.com, and it's going to talk about the same thing about the whole bombing thing that doesn't make it look right. All right, that it's not as what they said it would be. Now I can read something. It's almost the same story as the earlier one that I showed you. But I can just read it to say most people, including many scientists, are under the impression that the survivors facing debilitating health effects and very high rates of cancer, and the children had higher rates of genetic disease, said Bertrand Jordan, an author and a molecular biologist at A. Marseille University and the CNRS in France. He says there is an enormous gap between that belief and what has actually been found by researchers. So I just want you to know one thing when you study this story, all right? Or when you listen to the news. Everything that they try to make you do will be propagated by fear. Fear in any shape or form. That is the tool of the Vatican, all right? So, with that said, I'm going to show you something else about a fear tactic that's very, very particular about the Vatican, all right? What I'm going to show you happens to be from from a guy called Edward Snowden. We'll come back to Edward Snowden in a minute. But maybe I should just start off with Edward Snowden. But I wanted to start off with the story on there was since I'm in England, London right now. There's a story about a bill that's being signed into the UK. Now, the bill is called the Investigatory Powers Bill. Now, what this bill does is that it gives your internet service provider, all right, the ability to store your searches and the websites that you visit on your internet for a year, and then they can hand this over to the police. Right, this data is going to be stored. So for example, right now there's some, like I'm doing searches on this internet, right? And whatever you're researching on or whatever you're buying, that stuff is going to be tracked. That means that when you log on to your internet service provider, all that information is going to be cached in their servers on which websites you follow or which websites you visit. And the government is going to store this on their servers, all right? And they can use this. They can use this to do whatever they want to do with it, and then they can track you. All right. Now, I want to tell you something about tracking. That's why I always advise people to study the Bible. Now, we live in a surveillance society. We all know that we're being surveilled at any point in time, maybe through phone, maybe through cameras or hidden cameras, and through what you're doing on the internet, and so on and so forth. All right. Now, what I want you to understand is this. All right. I'm gonna take somebody you probably heard in the news in the United States. His name is Edward Snowden. All right, Edward Snowden right here. Now, Edward Snowden happened to be somebody who came out in the public. All right, he told us that the American government, all right, was spying on its citizen by keeping track of your phone records. They could get into your call and get into your phone, and they could actually know what you're doing. Now, I want to just tell you a short story about Edward Snowden. I want you to think about this for a second because people don't actually think. Edward Snowden said that the government can track you, they can follow you, all right? And they can know where you're at every point in time. Now, for some reason, I want you to know that Edward Snowden works for the government. That means he has a high level of clearance, a security clearance in the United States government. And this person who gave you the news that you're being tracked, that the government is watching over you, somehow managed to get out of his office at the National Security Agency. He somehow managed to avoid the authorities. Remember, he's the one who's telling you that the government is watching you and tracking you. He managed to avoid the cameras. The cameras didn't pick him up. The phones that he was using, when he thumbprinted himself through passport and immigration, they couldn't catch him, right? He boarded a flight with his own passport and traveled all the way to a country somewhere in Europe before ending up in Russia. And he wasn't tracked and caught. Now, I want you to listen if that story makes any sense at all. Because people just believe everything they hear and see on TV without actually thinking through it. Edward Snowden told you that the government was tracking you, that they could track everybody, and for some reason he managed to slip out of them tracking himself, and he escaped all the way to Europe. Does that make any sense? I mean, if the government was able to track everybody and anybody at any time, then Edward Snowden should be the very first case example of getting caught. Because one, he was working for the National Security Agency. That means if they're going to track anybody else, if the person that they should track first and foremost should be the person who's working for them, so he doesn't run away and tell the secrets. But for some reason, he didn't change his passport, he didn't change his thumbprint, he just walked through the airport, boarded a flight to Europe, and voila, and started telling you the story. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that this is a fear tactic and propaganda. Now, I know some things about what they call computers, so I'm just going to tell you something, right? Now, if you're going to be tracked, let's say, for example, you have a million or a billion sand grains on the beach, and you're trying to track one sand grain. How possible is it for you to catch that sand grain? Bearing in mind that the sand grain, there's wind moving all over on the beach, and that sand grain can move from point A to point B. Now, in computers, there's what we call latency or what we call redundancy. Redundancy means that there is a time period in which the information that you're looking for is useful. After that certain time period, all right, the information is obsolete. So if you've ever been in like maybe if you've ever watched TV and you hear about murder cases, they usually give 48 hours, all right, for you to find maybe the person who's involved in the murder. Because after 48 hours, all clues, whether it be thumbprints, fingerprints, or whatsoever you have, becomes more and more difficult to obtain. It's the same thing when you're tracking someone, right? So if you're trying to track someone, let's say for example, okay, you have one particular person that you're tracking, all right? If you do not get enough information to catch the person under 48 hours, the trail gets colder and colder every second and every minute. So what Edward Snowden was telling you is not possible. You can track a person. You cannot track everybody. That is impossible. You can track one person. Because I remember one time when Obama actually said it, that it's physically impossible. He actually admitted to the fact that it's physically impossible to track everybody. Let me see if I can get that information out for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna play a short clip of what I talked about when Obama actually said this, that it's physically impossible for you to track everybody. And then after that, the clip is being played, I'll come back and make some certain statements. So let's get into this, all right? Let's see if I can find that clip right here, and it's right there, and I'll play it from here, all right? So listen.
And that is part of the visa review process, that people are investigating what individuals have said publicly and questioned about any statements that they may be made. But if you have a private communications between two individuals, that's harder to discern by definition. And one of the things we'll be doing is engaging with the high-tech community to find out how we can, in an appropriate way, do a better job if we have a lead to be able to track a suspected terrorist. But we're going to have to recognize that no government is going to have the capacity to read every single person's text or emails or social media. If it's not posted publicly, then there are going to be feasibility issues that are probably insurmountable at some level, and it raises questions about our values. I mean, keep in mind it was only.
So I pause it right there. If you did hear now, you can actually let me highlight this website right here. So you can actually copy that out right there if you're following my mouse, and then you can start playing the clip at around 10 minutes in, and you will hear when he says it that it's impossible for you to track every communication, whether it's public or not. It's insurmountable. You actually heard those words. So now that is what I'm trying to show you, that the government sets fear up as a propaganda tool, right? And then they create actors like Edward Snowden to make you believe it. They have so many other ways of doing it. It can be a video, a movie, a documentary, just to drive home the point, that fear propaganda into your mental state of thinking. So you're constantly thinking that you're being watched and tracked. Now, let me just show you how this works. If you're constantly thinking that someone's watching you, all right, you are not going to be acting right. You're not going to be thinking clearly. You're going to be afraid of doing certain things because you think someone is watching you. So it's more like, for example, let's say, I'm just going to give a crude example here, and pardon me for making this crude example. If a woman, all right, knows that someone's watching her while she's taking a shower, all right, that lady is going to be afraid of taking showers. That's how it works. That's how the fear propaganda works. So if, for example, let's say right now that we are afraid that the government is watching over all communications that we make, we are not going to be able to communicate with one another. We're gonna be not gonna be saying the things that we're supposed to say because we are afraid that the government is watching over our communications. Does it make sense what I'm saying? So for example, maybe you had something negative to say about maybe Obama or Donald Trump or something you think you ought to say. But because the government has made you to believe that you're being watched over, you're afraid of saying things. So you're afraid of making impact. You're afraid of gathering together and discussing things that you ought to discuss because you're afraid that the government is watching you and they're going to crack down on you at any point in time. So that's how that idea actually works. Okay? So if the government, let's just think about it logically. If the government is able to track everybody, no matter where you're at, and there is a computer that can do so, that means that computer has to be God. So that's why you need to study your King James Bible to understand that the only person who can be at every place at the same time only is God Almighty. But the Vatican doesn't want you to have this kind of knowledge. That's why it doesn't want you to study the Bible. That is why it counteracts the Bible at everything. Because when you know that God is the only person who can watch over everybody, who knows where everybody is at any time else, that he can see everything. That's what the Vatican wants you to believe, that they can be like God, or they can have some sort of computer who can watch over you like God. It's not possible. It's not possible for you to watch everybody at the same time, to be able to track everybody except your God Almighty. That's just a fact. So, with that said, let me move on to the next topic because I'm done with Edward Snowden here and your former president Obama. Since I'm in the fine city of London, England, I just want to talk about something that people don't actually know, don't actually reason enough because it's not it's not public knowledge. Now, what I wanted to show you, if you've already been on a channel, right? I will just present some pictures to you on what I'm going to say. You would happen to know that we've talked about. Let me just pull the pictures up further. This is Queen Elizabeth, right? She's the current Queen of England. And if you talked, you can actually look for a playlist on a channel. It will talk about royal transgenders, and there we talk about. We have a video on Kate Middleton. You can look that up on our channel. We also have a video on Prince Charles. Sorry. Now, I don't know. Let's say hypothetically that Queen Elizabeth is female. I haven't looked her up to know if she's transgender or not. Let's just say for the purposes of this particular video that Queen Elizabeth is female. All right. Now we've proven on this channel, all right, that Prince Charles here is actually a woman, a princess. Should be Princess Charles, right? So if we've proven that on our channel and we know that Prince Charles here is female, I've looked up Princess Diana and she was female as well. So you have two females here, right? And currently we say that Prince Charles is heir to the throne of England, but he is female, right? So what that now say now if let's just think about it hypothetically. If this is female and Princess Diana was female, that means we have two females, and two females can produce any children, all right? And let's say, and since two females can produce children, we have to ask this question: where did the sperm come from for the children that Princess Diana had, which happens to be Prince William here and Prince Harry here, All right. So the question now arises, where did the sperm come from for these two sons? Right? Now, if we've proven on this channel that Prince Charles here is female and Princess Diana we know is a woman, and since two women can have children or have create children, that means the legitimacy of Prince William here and Prince Harry is questionable. That means that the throne of England is illegitimate. It's not a real monarchy. Does it make sense? Because these are two women. Because under British royalty, I mean under like monarchy rules, the son or children has to be a direct heir, a seed of the incumbent reigning monarch or king. So if we've proven that this two, Prince Charles here, is female, then that renders the fact that this British monarchy is screwed up. It can't be real. Now, this is just something I'm just going to throw out there, all right? Just for you to know. I think that Princess Diana, since this is a female, Princess Diana probably was tired of being the slave, right? Or being, let's say the cover for Prince Charles here because he's female. And she probably was tired of hanging around with a female for too long, and she had a relationship with one of the Doyet, I think one of the sons of the Fayed or Doyet, that she died in assumed accident that she had in Paris. Now, I'm thinking that it's probably because this is female, and she was tired of being around a woman, had an affair with a man. And the British royal family didn't find that funny. And so they offed her. It's just my thoughts. I'm not making any accusations. It's just part of the story that I'm putting out there. So it's just my own conjecture. I could be all wrong, but that is what I think. Now, the next picture that I'm presenting to you is Prince William. And we've proven on this channel that Kate Middleton is a man. And two men can produce any children. Now, if Prince William is the third in line to the throne of England behind Prince Charles, and this is a man, and Kate Middleton is a man, we have to ask the question, where did the children come from? Who provided the ovaries? Because if it did not come from a king, a prince, and a princess, those children are illegitimate. So that means that the throne of England here is illegitimate as well. It's just a facade. It's not real. There's no true reigning monarchy. All right? Now, we're on to Meghan Markle. Now, the news being painted around is that Meghan Markle is dating Prince Harry. And the news and the media is setting it up to look like they're gonna get married. Now, why is that so? You have to understand that Meghan here is black because, as you can see, this is her mother right there, and that's a black woman. And under the British monarchy today, that would render this marriage, supposedly affair of Prince Harry, being that he's so far down the line that he'll never be king, illegitimate as well, because this lady is black, right? So that now made me to ask a certain question. Now I'm going to be presenting some facts to you about the fact that it's been a long time since the papal office took care of the British crown and made sure that it would not be a problem to them anymore since King James of England, all right, translated the Bible into the common English tongue, which we still have today. It is still one of the most beloved Bibles because it's accurate, even though it may have a level of inaccuracy in it to a certain degree. It is one of the most accurate Bibles that we have. All right. So I'm trying to show you right here that the legitimacy of the British crown is a facade. It's not real. It's a game. It's not true. The real power lies in the papal office. All right. So now let's get back to proving certain things so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, if you go looking for the King James Bible and you read up the story of King James, the man who brought us the King James Bible, which we read today. If you go on his wiki page, this is what he looks like. I'm going to try to blow this up so you can see yourself. You can also actually look at the page yourself. All right. You can follow my mouse right here and copy that out, pause the video, copy that link out, and go look it up. Now, here is how King James looks like. As you can see, he's white and Caucasian. All right? This is what the official history books make him look like. Now, since I study a lot of history, I came across a book one time that talks about King James. And I'm going to show you what the book looks like. And the book is called, if you follow my mouse, it says King James 6 and 1 and the Reunion of Christendom, Cambridge Studies in Early Modern British History. It's on Amazon. You can actually follow my mouse and copy that line out, right? And paste it in your browser and take a look. Now, what I did notice, this is the book right here, as you can see. What I did notice on the book cover is like when I looked at the page of the book, all right, of this book, I found out that the features of this man here is not the same as this man here. You can see this man is white and Caucasian here, right? And this man looks black, right? So I pulled up some pictures. I'm going to show you some pictures of King James from this particular book. Now, somebody may say it's a picture, all right? Somebody could paint the picture black or white. I'm going to tell you how, if you read this book, you will show the history of this book. It will show you that this picture that they have in this book was taken from a cloth, all right? Now, here is how people used to store information about themselves way back in history, which is not common knowledge or commonly practiced today. Today we have photographs, all right? We have like physical photographs, right? Now, how they used to store information and keep something that would show to the world who these people way back in the day was something they called I don't quite remember the name, but it's more like called edging yourself in stone or edging yourselves on cloth. Now, the pharaohs of Egypt aged themselves into stones, right? Because they know that stones, if you're gonna like cover up the image or try to change it, you're gonna change a lot of the features, all right, of that stone carving that is gonna show that somebody actually made the changes. That is not the original carvings that was left. So that's how the pharaohs etched themselves into stone. Another way that people used to do it was to age themselves into clothing. So, for example, if you have a piece of cloth, right, and you put a picture on the cloth, if someone tried to paint over the images of that cloth or try to change the image that you have on the cloth, you can try it yourself. He's going to mess up the cloth and it's going to show that someone tampered with it. So this picture of King James here was photographed from a cloth which had been aged with his own pictures. As you can see, the facial features of this man is black and not Caucasian as we have the present British monarchy. Now, I took some pictures out of this book and I'm going to show you what those pictures look like. And here are the pictures. As you can see right here, this is the picture of a black man, King James, and not the same picture as you have over here in the wiki page. Can you see the difference? I'm going to try to pull that outside. So let me see if I can make this to be much more feasible enough so you can actually see it. All right. Let me pull that out here and down this way. You can see that this is not the same. This is Caucasian of here, and then the facial features of this man right here are black. Can you see that? Here's another picture again. Can you see that? So what I'm trying to show to you here is that the British monarchy has been replaced. It is not what you think it used to be. Okay? It is not this. It was this. Can you see the facial features here? Take a good look again. That's a black man's facial features. All right. So that's what I wanted to bring to your attention because of all what's happening in the fine city of London in England recently. Okay. So now, with that said, let's get back to Andre, what's his name again? I've totally forgotten his name on who I was trying. We had the video on today. Let me get his name again so we can get back. But today we're talking about Andy Biersack to show you that he's a transgender. Now, if you read the story of Andrew Dennis Andy Biersack here, he says, formerly known as Andy Six, is an American singer and pianist. He's the founder and lead vocalist for the American rock band Black Veil Brides. All right. Now, let's read further into Andy Biersack. All right. And what do you notice about Andy Biersack's early life and education here? He says, for his early education, Biersack attended a Catholic elementary school. He said, which he has spoken of in many interviews. He says his preschool teacher was Jamie Peters, who had a big influence on his creativity. That goes to show you once again, like I've always said, the system put in place by the Vatican to make sure that it controls, all right, and produces the people that they can rely and depend on to run the new world order. All right. So let's get into Andy Biersack properly to show you what he looks like. Now, here is a video of Andy Biersack with the Black Veil Brides. All right. The title of that the song is called In the End. Now, if you look at Andy Biersack right now on my screen, you will notice that he has hips. Can you see that hip extension right there? That's the hip extension of a female, but he's being portrayed to you as male. Can you see the hips now? You're following my mouse, right? Okay, so let me show you some more pictures of Andy Biersack. All right, let's get into it. And here is Andy Biersack. As you can see, he has an hourglass figure. Can you see those great hips he has? Now, if it's your first time on the channel, you don't know what a woman looks like, I'll just show you from one of our documents, all right? Here is a female. See the hourglass female that this lady has here? It's because with a female has a wide pelvic arch. The wide pelvic arch pulls the pelvis further apart, and because of that, pulls the hips further apart and the legs apart. Another picture down here just to show you again. See the wide pubic arch here in this female, right? That pubic arch causes a woman to have space in between her legs. The pubic arch is for birth so that a woman can push a baby out of a womb so that she can also have sex, spread her legs, and have children. That's what it is. Hourglass figure because of the wide pubic arch, which pushes the legs and hips further apart in a female. And that is what Andy Biersack here presented to people as a male has. He is female. See the hourglass figure and hips? Comparable to a lady over here, right? See that? See this? You're looking at a female, right? Some more pictures. Look at Andy Biersack again. See the hourglass figure there? Right? They tattoo him up, one of the tricks of the trade, trying to make him look like a bad boy, but he's just a bad girl. Look at those hips, comparable to a fine lady over here. See the hips? And see the hips over here? Andy Biersack is female. Alright, some more pictures. Look at Andy Biersack again. What do you think you're looking at? See those eyes? See that face? Forget about the tattoos that they're trying to play around with you. You're looking at a female. Alright? Andy Biersack again. And what you see? Those hips. See the female indentation above the navel? The female waist starts above the navel? See that? See those hips down there? You're looking at a female. Alright? Look at another picture. Can you see those females again? Oh, sorry. Can you see those hips again there? Comparable to this female over here? You're looking at a female presented to you as a male, showing you what the Vatican does best. And that's still another picture. And with that picture, this last one, we come to the end of today's show. I hope you learned something valuable information that you could use. So all I can do, as I always say, is stay tuned, subscribe, and I leave you with those words. Look with your eyes and see with your brain. Thanks and bye-bye.